Welcome to On the Firing Line on the information station, AM 1440 KUHL. Information, education, news, and politics of firearms and ammunition is found here. If you have any questions, call us at 1-888-625-1440. That's 1-888-625-1440.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate and of the House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after the Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or an armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government was deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to the American naval and military forces. I regret to tell you that very many American lives have been lost. In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu. Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive, extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense. But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us, no matter how long it may take us to overcome the premeditated invasion. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but we will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
You are on the firing line with Matt and Joe. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440. Or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
Wow.
A day that will live in infamy right there.
Forever, dude. What a speech. And it's one that no president should ever have to give out or would want to give out.
Yeah, it's scary stuff, but it happened, and we kind of have to think about this type of stuff because we know history repeats itself in one form, one shape or another.
Yep. Today's a sad day that we should have to remember this, but we should.
Yep.
Because there was a lot of blood spilled, a lot of our loved ones lost that day, and a great might of our force was lost that day as well. Matter of fact, Matt, not too long ago, went and saw in unbelievable things, I would imagine.
It's an amazing place to go, just the amount of history there, looking at all that stuff that, hasn't changed since it happened. It's really amazing to see it all, and it's awesome that it's preserved so well.
Wow. What was the favorite, What was your favorite thing to see while you were there?
The whole thing was the whole experience in general. From the second you get to the parking lot and you see the flags at half-mast to going out and paying respects to the Arizona and all those guys, the whole thing, it was really moving.
Yep. It's amazing is today I have yet to hear from any of the medias or anything really much about, the 7th. Or
yeah,
it's right. Something that people are starting to forget already, I think.
Yeah, so unless it's in a big anniversary thing like the 50-year, 60-year anniversary, that's the only time we really hear about it. Other than just a slight little thing in the news. But even that, I haven't seen anything today majorly talking about it.
Yep. Well, that's one of the reasons why today we're going to bring it up. I have a couple of articles about it, a letter to remember Pearl Harbor, as well as I have another article that's Day of Infamy, a lesson and a challenge. And it kind of breaks down, while Pearl Harbor was its own war that brought us into World War II, Pearl Harbor was an attack that brought us into World War II. There are correlations between that time period and this time period, as we're in a war now. Many people wish to ignore that fact, but we are. We're in a war against terrorism. And there's a lot to be said about that, and I think we're going to discuss that more on as we go through the show today. And we hope that everybody, kind of that sounded and rang through their ears as we read that. Maybe I read it a little bit over the top, but I think that's part of who we are and what we do here. So
yep, yeah, we were trying to get the old radio sound. Yeah,
that's just in.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been fantastic too.
This is Walter Winchell.
So, yes, again, like Matt said, hey, welcome to On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Don't forget that we have a Facebook page you can go to and listen. Not listen, but you can read the outlines for the shows. You can leave comments on there as well to some of the articles that we post up, because we're always posting stuff up.
Yep.
It's a great place to get information. And we thank you very much for joining us today for this time to remember Pearl Harbor. On that note, we should probably take a quick break since it was kind of a long opening. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and jump into the letter, Remember Pearl Harbor. We'll be right back with you on the firing line.
We'll be back to more of On the Firing Line with Joe and Jim after this.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We will be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019 B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years.
Now a great word from Santa Maria Motorcycles, formerly Santa Maria Harley-Davidson, located at 2022 Presker Lane. They are dealers for Honda, Kawasaki, and Harley-Davidson. Grab your family and go see the museum, filled with exciting older bikes that you won't see anywhere else on the Central Coast. As well, they are the #1 motorcycle dealer on the Central Coast with the largest inventory around. Go in and see Martin Buchanan, or you can give him a call at 805-928-3668. You can also go visit them every first Thursday of the month for Bike Night. Starts at 6 p.m. Have a great time with your family at Santa Maria Motorcycles. You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe today.
Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440. Or if you're in the Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
And of course, don't forget to check us out on Facebook on the Firing Line with Matt and Joe.
That's right, we're back on the firing line. Today is the Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day anniversary. We just wanted to bring some of that stuff up and read about it a little bit. And we'll follow it. We have a letter, Remember Pearl Harbor. Let's get into this.
Yeah.
To the editor. 72 years ago, December 7th, 1941, the United States was attacked by the Imperial Forces of Japan at the largest naval installation, Pearl Harbor, Honolulu, Hawaii. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, addressing the joint session of Congress on December 8th, 1941, said that the state of war existed between the United States of America and Japan, as described December 7th as a day that will live in infamy.
Wow.
There is no question that the sudden and treacherous attack on Pearl Harbor and nearby U.S. Army, Army Air Corps, and U.S. Marine facilities took place while two Japanese emissaries of the Japanese ambassador to the U.S., Admiral Nomura, were negotiating with the Secretary of State Cordell Hull, and the Japanese ambassador met with President Roosevelt even while the Japanese naval forces were en route to attack Pearl Harbor.
Ouch.
Yeah, that just sounds,
That's so treacherous.
That's very, very treacherous. There's a lot of deception going on there. They're going to meet and talk about this thing, but meanwhile we have the entire forces moving to destroy something.
The art of war.
There it is. The subsequent war, caused several million dead and wounded throughout the world. Many thousands, especially civilians, still have physical and mental scars. I don't know how many American survivors of the attack of Pearl Harbor still living in Burlington County. President Clinton approved a joint resolution of the 103rd Congress designating December 7th each year as a National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and urged all federal agencies, interest groups, organizations, and individuals to fly the American flag at half-staff in honor and in memory of those who were in the attack and died defending Pearl Harbor and the adjacent American military installations.
I don't remember seeing any flags at half-mast today.
The ones that I see are the ones that are usually there anyhow. Guys that have a flag, and you're right, I don't recall seeing them at half-mast.
How quickly we forgot, especially since so many lives were lost there.
And it seems like it may have been a long time ago, but on the grand scale, this wasn't too long ago, and it was such a major thing that it has to be remembered. We do not want to forget this, especially what we were saying earlier with, history repeats itself. It would be a travesty to forget this. It would not be a good thing. All right. There will be very little said on appearing in the media on December 7th, 1941, 72 years later. So that's right. We haven't seen a whole lot of stuff today about it.
Yep.
That's too bad. Yes, there will be a few ceremonies marking the occasion. One will be on the U.S. battleship New Jersey, BB-62, in Camden, where veterans offer prayers and then drop floral tributes into the water. Another ceremony will be held at the Pearl Harbor Highway, the section of the New Jersey Turnpike, which across over the Delaware River and leads into the Pennsylvania Turnpike. In the past, there was more space in the media devoted to protests of using the atom bomb to force Japanese military forces and government to stop the war.
That's always bothered me. Wasn't it right up here in San Luis Pier, or the bay right up here in Pismo area? Mm-hmm. They barred the battleship, or not the battleship, the aircraft carrier, or something like that.
Yeah, Avila.
Yeah. What, it was like, you don't want that thing that's a part of our history, something that saved both Japanese and American lives in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that atomic bombs are not good, and they take a lot of lives too, but in the bigger scheme of things, in the time period, we would have lost more men had we continued on with a land battle.
Yep. When I was a young kid, I used to ask my grandpa what he thought about that and about dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he told me was that he thought it was a great thing, not because of the lives lost, but because of the lives saved. I guess the alternative to that would have been boots on the ground over there, in Japan, and that would have killed a lot more civilians and a lot more U.S. soldiers, a lot more. So it's a double-edged sword. War's ugly, but the end justifies the means in this case.
Absolutely.
An estimated 1 million casualties would have been sustained if Allied forces were to invade Japanese homeland islands. There were several thousand Allied prisoners in Japanese POW camps, and the Japanese military promised that each and every one of the POWs would be executed should the invasion happen.
See, I never even knew that. That's something new for me. I didn't realize that.
Same here, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a weight they could hold over our heads, but I never knew that either. A few years ago, the battleship USS Missouri was placed adjacent to the USS Arizona, a fitting tribute to history. Let us take a few moments on December 7th, 2013, to remember the sacrifices and the loss of life on that sudden and treacherous attack 72 years ago, and offer a prayer in their memories.
Wow. Hey, if there's anybody out there who has family, or even if you were, there's not too many of them left anymore that were in the World War II. Yeah. But if you have family or stories about that, give us a call. We'd like to hear about that. We'd like to hear your experience, what you think about what happened there and all that, because this is a day of sharing. That's the way we remember things.
Yep.
And again, that phone number is 888-625-1440. Again, 888-625-1440. Or if you're in the Santa Maria area or in the 805 area, just give us a call at 928-1440. Again, 928-1440. We'd like to hear, what your families have passed on to you as their experiences during that day and that time period, and or even in the theater of World War II anywhere. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of Marines did a lot of work during those years. As well as a lot of other service members. Yep. And I'm sure that there's a lot to be spoke up about today and remembered. Yep. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
And at the Pearl Harbor location, at Pearl Harbor, they have survivors that are there that you can talk to about these things that have happened. And the number of people there to talk about it is drastically declining. Yeah, there's, I think, only 1 or 2 days a week now somebody's there, as opposed to every day of the week where they used to kind of rotate. I was lucky enough to meet one guy. I was just calling him Gilbert. I don't remember his rank or his last name, unfortunately. But what an amazing person to talk to. Just 5 minutes talking to him, and there's lots of thanks to be given.
That's awesome. It's funny as well. Matt was reading that he's got a challenge coin right here that is actually the USS Missouri.
Yep.
Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, right there.
Yep. Carrying it in my pocket for the day.
Let's see. It says something on the back here. USS Missouri. Over this spot on 2 September 1945, the instrument of formal surrender of Japan to the Allied powers were signed, thus bringing to a close the Second World War. The ship at that time was at anchor in Tokyo Bay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, the Missouri, that's where the Japanese ultimately surrendered to the Allied forces. My grandpa was on that ship, so it's kind of a cool thing for me personally.
Wow. My grandfather was on a transport ship. I don't know. I don't really know in which theater he was transporting guys back and forth from, but he was in the Navy. I tell you what, Jim.
Yep, Jim.
Yeah, my dad. He was in the Navy. He did the same thing as a boat coxswain. He used to take guys back in and out and stuff like that. That's what he did, like those landing craft type things.
Right.
That's what he did.
Well, that's scary.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then I had an uncle that was shot up in Europe, and another one that was wounded in Italy.
In Italy.
Well, I guess Europe, Italy.
Right.
Wow. But my one was the one was wounded in. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was Germany.
In Germany?
I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive. I keep thinking it was Germany, but I know it was that part of Europe that he was injured in. Yeah. But my other uncle was wounded or injured in Italy.
Wow. I have my grandmother on my dad's side. Her sister was married to a guy that was a POW. The Germans to get him. And when he finally succumbed to Alzheimer's, she came home one day and she found him outside in the bushes hiding from the Germans. And this was back in the 80s. Wow. So you can imagine what was going on in his brain, through Alzheimer's and stuff.
After all that time, it was still fresh in his brain.
Hiding in the bushes out front from the Germans.
It's One intense. Of the things that I've seen, though, lately, especially, really lately, is all the things about the internment camps that the Americans did for the Japanese Americans. Mm-hmm. But, we didn't live during that time.
No.
Hindsight's 20/20, and maybe we shouldn't have did those things. But I'm not going to judge it. We did it.
We did it.
And and some of them were absolutely correct to do. We didn't know what we were going to do, especially the internment camps here on the West Coast.
Yeah,
we're so close to Hawaii and stuff, and they did launch stuff from. Because we lost a ship not too far from where we're sitting.
Yep.
We lost a ship to the Japanese. So, this would be a place where you'd go, hey, wait a minute, the Japanese telling them,
It was a vulnerable spot.
Very vulnerable.
It's an area where they took this area, they had a lot to gain from it.
So, you guys are talking about the, people protesting and stuff like that. They didn't live during those times either.
Right.
The thing is that my grandmother did. I lived with my grandmother, and obviously she built warplanes. She worked for
Rosie Riveter.
No, she worked for Bill. Yeah, right. So, my grandmother was more on the engineering side.
Okay.
She was not there riveting. She worked at Bell Aircraft. Is what she worked at. So they basically built the P-38s or whatever they were, and she said that you were always scared. I mean, the whole time you were just frightened all the time that something was going to happen. You never really felt relaxed or anything like that. And when the bomb blew, she said that was a great day. She said she knew that it was never going to stop. The Japanese were never really going to surrender. I kept thinking, I remember when we learned this. I apologize, but I learned it in the late 60s. Late 60s, early 70s. I learned all about World War II because I was a history major in high school. Anyway, long story short is, I always kept thinking, Japan, they're about an inch big on the map. Yeah. The rest of the world, they're really big. What are they thinking?
They stepped out and conquered so much. I mean, China, Korea, all those different...
They had a socialistic view of life. Mm-hmm.
Right.
See, they did not have a political society, and that was the biggest problem. Just like this is like what they're trying to get here in America. That when you start manipulating what we've talked about a lot, you're going to look what's going on even in our
own government.
Our own government, which
right
is
now.
a wonderful article written by Adam. Wrote a great article. But anyway, that when that starts to happen, you got imperialism instead of capitalism, instead of willfully, intellectual. That's what happens. They say, hey, we can conquer this. I mean, when you were reading that, think about that. Guam was all this was part of the West Coast was attacked.
Yeah, in 36 hours, they had a huge front for the war.
Midway Island,
right.
Everything. You're thinking to yourself, wow, Wake Island. You're thinking, wow, these guys were. And if you look at I've looked at the globe. I know where those islands are. As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law was on Wake Island for a while. So you look at it and you go, I see what they were doing. You can actually see what they were doing.
They're
trying to make
blanketing it south,
making a ring like, huh?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like, Philippines and stuff like that. Because ICE was stationed in the Philippines during Vietnam, so our ship would go into the Philippines a lot. And Japan. Japan's not allowed to have a defense still to this day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they can't small defensive, like what's called a...
Didn't that recently change, though?
Well, they're trying to get it to change completely, but it never will because unless... Well, we know. Hey, this president got changed.
Hey, Japan, we know what you'll do. Take it easy.
Exactly.
But isn't it weird how they would change that around? How they would be like internment camps were bad and all this. You didn't even live during that time.
Well, I think it's
and
like you
true.
said, 20/20 hindsight.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you got to, I was raised that, hey, internment camps for the Japanese was the worst thing we've ever done because, they were Americans and you don't treat Americans like that. The whole idealism of America is freedom and the ability to move about and not be questioned just because you were assumed that you did something, But you're right. We didn't live in those times. We have no understanding. Yes, there were probably some atrocities that happened, but at the same time, they were able to take a larger control and keep a lot of the Japanese insurgents, shall we call them insurgents or traitors?
Well, that's
whatever they were.
Because it happened in Hawaii. They were sending messages over to the Japanese in Hawaii just before the bombs did come. So they didn't know where the attacks were going to come from. Yep. The FBI stepped in, did their job, and of course, whatever other entities were existing at that time. And, like I said before, too, no matter what mistakes America has ever made, we're still the greatest nation, and we still have the ability.
I don't consider the internment camps a mistake. I apologize. No. I really don't.
I'm with you, Jim.
Yeah, I don't, because I didn't live during those times, but I did have relatives that lived during those times, and they did tell me what was going on. Yep. And you know what? I probably would have did the same things.
I probably would have, too.
The fear, like my grandmother said, you never were out of fear. You always were wondering, are they coming again?
And the Japanese knew where to hit because they had Japanese people in Hawaii that would go up on the hills and look down into Battlefield Row and say, okay, that's a weak spot. we can attack them coming from the west right there and nail them.
Plus, communication wasn't like what it is today and stuff like that. I mean, word of mouth was the biggest thing that got across small parts of this country. I mean, if you lived in Santa Maria or something like that, the word of mouth to L.A. would probably be 2 days.
Yep.
Right.
So by then, hey, the Japanese have invaded Long Beach. Oh, my gosh. I mean, that's what you're thinking,
That's a good point, yeah.
We didn't have television. There was no television. You only had radio. I mean, we had a limited television, but very, 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 very limited television. But, we did the best we possibly could. And you know what? The Japanese, a lot of them, obviously lost a lot here in America, and that's terrible. But they recuperated and they came back. And at one time, hey, let's face it, the Japanese were just about running this country until they went bankrupt.
Right.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Well, we should probably take a quick break. We do have another article that I want to read. It's the Day of Infamy: A Lesson and a Challenge, and it shows a kind of correlation of those great people that lived then in a government that was so strong to protect America, but yet today, faced with that same exact thing, how would it be handled? What would our government truly do now? And how do we look at things now? I mean, after all, we are in a war. We're in a war against terrorism, and we were taken by surprise, even though it should have been no surprise. Well, and here it is.
It's very similar. They're very, very similar.
You've got a lot of similarities. And it brings up a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts in things that we should be thinking about in remembrance of December 7th. All right, we'll be right back with you on the firing line.
You're listening to On the Firing Line on the Information Station.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We'll be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol Classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years. You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440. That's right, you're back on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We're talking about Pearl Harbor today on December 7th, talking very appropriate. Give us a call at 888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440. And if you have any stories about Pearl Harbor or maybe someone in your family, give us a call. We'd like to hear about it. Ding!
That was a challenge coin.
Yes.
So you're being challenged to give us a call.
Yes, on purpose.
Yeah, when I went to the memorial, the Arizona Memorial, it was still leaking oil.
Yeah, it was still leaking oil.
Is it still leaking oil
ago.
Yeah, it was still leaking oil. The top of it.
You can the picture I took, you can actually see the oil in the water. Yeah, the ring. Yeah.
But I was there in 72 or 73 and 75.
Well, it's
been a long
still
time
going
ago.
strong.
Yeah.
After they had, something it's going to leak until this time, then it's a
really?
It's a long time
off.
Yeah, I mean it'll leak for 100 years.
It is kind of patriotic though when you're starting to walk out there. And they let you go on that boat and you're starting to walk. You're like really it's real patriotic. You really feel like you're touching a piece of history.
Yeah, it's real neat. And the guys that are on the boat are active duty Navy guys. Oh, yeah. So it's just it's total respect. They're reminding you constantly. That you don't do that because it's respect, or do this because of respect. People, you have to remember where you are when you're at that place.
Wow.
It's truly hallowed ground.
Unbelievable. It's amazing. I'd love to go there and look through like one of the glass boats and just kind of look down through the water and see all that stuff. I think that would be amazing.
Oh, the water there is so clear. Even when you're looking down, I mean, you can see a large piece of the Arizona sitting down there.
Yeah. Hey, it looks like we have a caller on the line. Brian, welcome back to On the Firing Line.
Yes, sir. Hey, I've been to the Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Excellent. When did you go see it?
It is so, it's so sobering to be there.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
I'm a little bit broke up. My dad was in World War II at Hickam Field.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
December 7th.
That's right there.
So did he tell you stories?
He really did not tell too many stories. What's really weird about my dad was at one time he was in a coffee shop and this old boy said, "I'm a veteran and I deserve a cup of coffee." My dad said, "You know what?" And he goes, "Cup of coffee and a little bit of brag will get you a medal." And he had a Foot Locker full of commendations and things, and somebody stole it.
Oh, my God. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
Yeah. My dad was Navy.
He must have been heartbroken over that.
I'm still heartbroken.
Yep, that's a shame.
Day. But, these people that, I'm telling you, I'm sorry, I'm just broke up. But December 7th is very important to me. I'm only 50 years old, but still, it is critical to this country to remember these things.
Absolutely.
That's how we feel here too. There's too much things happen because of that, and after it to just forget about it. It has to be honored.
And that's kind of what this next article that I'm going to read kind of points out too.
Yep.
That we can't forget about it, and it does have correlations with what's going on.
Absolutely.
Well, I think when I was in Hawaii, I went and you see where they flew through that cut in the mountains. I saw that, and I saw where they flew through the cut.
Wow.
Yep.
And then I was on the Arizona. On the memorial, and very sobering, very, very sobering. If you've never been there, have you?
I haven't. Matt has.
Yep, I was there earlier this year, actually.
Yeah, I've been there.
And Jim has been there as well.
It is very sobering, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Even when I left later in the afternoon that day, the whole rest of the day I was kind of just thinking about it constantly. It wasn't like an amusement park that you go to and when you leave it's over. It stuck with me and it made a lasting impression.
It has stuck with me. You go through that. You have to walk through and go through the the orientation, if you will.
Yes.
Watch the movie and all that. You saw that.
Yep, yeah. And I think that's good that they have that stuff because it kind of gives you something to think about when you're out there other than just the obvious, It's it's the how and the why.
But you know what? Everybody complains about the oil seeping out of that ship. It's still leaking. But you know what? The fish are thriving there. I noticed that, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of them swimming down there, that's for sure.
That's all.
But, I just... I wanted to say thank you to all the veterans listening.
Amen.
Thank God for those men.
Yes,
Amen.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yep, this is for them and for their brothers that are lost and for our family members that we've lost and everything. I really appreciate you calling in today and putting in your cents there. That's what we need. You're welcome to call in anytime.
I'll do it every weekend if I can.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Howard.
Have a good
Merry
one.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
That's another thing. God darn it. I'm sick and tired of going to the supermarket.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. If I have to hear that one more time, stand true to your conviction and respect other people's convictions.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I always say Merry Christmas. I said Merry Christmas to technical support today. My website went down, so I had to rebuild it, and I had said technical support. If I don't talk to you again, hey, Merry Christmas, man.
Exactly.
I'm kind of into
started to
Happy
laugh.
Kwanzaa.
Well, okay,
Well,
so
okay.
you
Kwanzaa's
say
not bad.
Kwanzaa,
I like
Kwanzaa,
Kwanzaa.
or
Well, yeah,
whatever.
no, exactly. To whatever
Or
it is,
Hanukkah?
that's
If somebody,
but don't combine all of them under one umbrella, calling them the holidays.
yeah, if somebody says Happy Hanukkah, it'd be like, okay, Merry Christmas.
Yep, yeah. It means the same thing as a greeting or whatever.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
greeting, yeah.
And
Different.
It's,
That's greeting.
it's just you standing up for what you believe in. It doesn't
Yep.
mean I have to disrespect you for that. And when I say, Merry Christmas back to you after you say that to me, then we both know who we are, and that's it. And
Yeah,
we're religious people.
Yeah,
God-fearing
it's not like
people.
you're
Well-
thumbing your nose at somebody just because you're saying a
Yeah,
different.
right.
It's
a holiday.
offending.
It's
Oh
like
my
the spirit of
God.
offense is just taking over everybody. Did you see that in the schools it was in Texas, in Abilene, Texas? Did you see that? Where they said, you're not even supposed to wear red or green.
Okay.
That is so ridiculous.
So they said, we don't want to offend anybody. Go, well, you're offending me. I want Merry Christmas. I'm
Yeah.
offended. Wait a minute here.
All these kids now are going to miss out on their Christmas because they can't even wear the appropriate
It's like-
colors.
Now, come on. Is that a little bit too far?
it's like
Yeah, a little
they
bit.
installed atheism, which is a religion.
Yeah, but it's crazy. I mean, we don't offend people. But the very people who love Merry Christmas, you're now offending.
Yep,
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
You missed us. Hey, what you're missing?
All right, let's get back into this next article. It was written by J.D. Longstreet. It was actually published, this year on the 7th, today.
This morning.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock
Hot
this
off
morning.
the press.
Hot off the press.
Hot.
All right, this guy,
day of
J.D.
infamy.
Longstreet, writes this, and it really hit me pretty hard when I read this. I have a lot of respect for this article. It goes like this. My personal journey to becoming a conservative began at Pearl Harbor. My philosophy on politics had its birth on the morning of December 7th, 1941. It was a beautiful Sunday morning in paradise when around 8 a.m., 70 years ago today, the Japanese swooped in out of a brilliant blue sky over Hawaii and bombed the port of Pearl Harbor to smithereens. Much of the muscle of our Navy was destroyed. By midday, over 2,400 Americans were dead, 1,200 more wounded. 7 of our finest, largest, and most powerful warships were bombed, torpedoed, and sunk at anchor in the harbor, while even more were damaged. Over 300 American aircraft were bombed, strafed, and destroyed or damaged, while still on the ground, and a plethora of other ships and military facilities were either damaged or wiped out completely. 4 days after the Pearl Harbor attack, Italy and Germany declared war on the United States. German submarine attacks commenced on American shipping in the Atlantic. Germans found easy pickings off our East Coast cities at night as the blaze of city lights silhouetted merchant ships. Within the coming weeks, American and British bases and territories throughout the Pacific fell. Guam, Wake Island, the Philippines, Singapore, and others fell. For our nation, each week brought a fresh defeat. It was a terrifying time, and I was only 7 months old. In the next 4 years, as my conscience grew, I became aware of all the activity around me. I saw soldiers in uniform. I saw my grandmother crying when the telegram came that her baby boy had been killed in action somewhere in Europe. And finally, I remember guns being fired into the air, people running through the streets of our little South Carolina town, hugging and kissing each other. I remember folks saying, "It's over," and it was. But it left an incredible mark on my family and even deeper mark on me. Those first 4 years of my life, the formative years, were experienced under intense stress. I learned the cost of war right from the beginning stages of my life. I lost one uncle in Belgium, the ancestral homeland. Another was machine gunned through both thighs and lay in a freezing stream in France all night until American troops found him the next morning. The icy water of that frozen stream saved his life. He suffered shell shock, referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder today, the remainder of his life. A summertime thunderstorm became an instant German artillery barrage. He would race for cover. The flashbacks were ever with him. Others of my family were in the Pacific fighting the Japanese. They too came home with stories of Japanese kamikaze planes hitting their ships, and in one case finding the pilot alive. For whatever reason, the plane with the bomb attached did not explode.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
When we could get those veterans to talk, which was not often, I was spellbound by the stories of their experience. I soaked it up like a sponge. You see, I learned both from personal experience and the secondhand experience of my family members who were in the hell of the Second World War, what war really is. And I learned that you have no choice when the enemy brings the war to your doorstep. You must fight back and you must prevail, no matter the cost. I don't suffer fools lightly. My generation shares that quality. Today, we have people in our government who are advocating a policy of retreat in the United States in our war against terrorists in the Middle East. It does not seem to matter to those folks that an enemy which has brought war to our shores will not quit and go home just because we do. They will follow us back to our own country and continue to wage war against us here in our land. Had the United States listened to the doves after Pearl Harbor, I would most likely be writing the missive in German rather than English. It was that serious then, and it's that serious now. So as we think today of the men and women who gave everything they had, including their lives, to ensure that you and I would have a free country, let us think of the men and women serving today for that same reason. On December 7th of 1941, the Japanese and the Germans wanted nothing less than the conquest of the world. But there is yet another war raging in America today. Even as I pen these few words, it is in quiet insurrection. The socialists are pressing their advantage in our government toward the ultimate goal of socialist Marxist America.
Absolutely.
Since that fateful day 72 years ago, much has changed about America. America, or Americans themselves, have changed. 72 years ago, Americans knew what freedom was and is. They understood its value. They inherently understood that it must be protected and ensured by the generations to come. They had no question they would fight. And on Monday morning, December 8th of 1941, and the weeks that followed, long lines of young men, and some not so young, formed up at the doors of the recruiting offices. Some lines were many city blocks long. All over this nation, Americans stepped up ready, willing, and eager to do their part, to stop the evil that threatened their beloved country and the world. They joked with each other while in line of what they would personally do to the enemy. But beneath the laughter and the irreverent exterior, deep down inside each one of them lay the cold determination to fight and win, the icy resolve to do whatever it took to protect his home and hearth. And yes, there was the flicker of fear that every man feels when he deliberately lays his future, indeed his life, on the altar of freedom. It cannot be argued that they are anything less than patriots. They fought a war that wrapped around the globe. In 4 years, they fought and won a global war. Today, we wage wars for 10 or 12 years without winning and finally drag our exhausted troops home. As I said above, America has changed. Americans have changed. America's most dangerous enemy today is a domestic movement to fundamentally change America from constitutional representative republic to a socialist dung heap, and the socialists are winning. America desperately needs women and men of the caliber of those men who formed outside recruiting offices on December 8th of 1941. Our nation is under attack. Our freedom is under attack. Our privacy is under attack. Our Constitution itself is under attack. We as a country are in every bit as much danger as we were the Sunday morning of December of 1941. But the enemy is not swooping in from the blue sun-bright sky. No, they are already among us in the top echelons of our government. More to be feared is the enemy within than the enemy without. America was once a nation of lions. Now American sheep are in abundance while there is decided dearth of lions. One could even say there is an acute efficiency of leadership for the sheep. There is no longer time for debate. They can come, if necessary, later. Now we must be about saving the republic. A few of the veterans of that global war are still with us today. How their hearts must ache to witness how easily the progeny has allowed America to fall within the grasp of socialist Marxists. You have to ask yourself, as an American, are you going to stand down, ground your weapon, and allow this evil from the deepest, darkest depths of hell to take your country? This is the question all Americans must ask themselves. The men and women, Caps International of 1941, had to ask themselves the same question. We'd better thank Almighty God they answered in the affirmative.
Mm-hmm.
Today we honor them for it, but they will tell you, those who survive to this day, that there was no real question about what the people of America would do. It was simply understood that freedom was far too precious to allow the forces of evil to take it from us. And so they marched forth to stop it and preserve this country for you and me. And they did.
Amen.
Yep.
We can never thank them enough. Not only did they save America, they saved the world. Are we as Americans prepared to give up our freedom today after the generation gave so much of their blood to preserve it for us? I pray to God that America will finally awaken to the danger that threatens us and take the painful steps, whatever they might be, to preserve this country and again the world. We have 1 year until we go to the polls again. And make no mistake, this is the last chance we have to save our Constitution, our republic, our freedom, and our liberty. We must purge our government of the socialists and Marxists who are determined to remake America into communist utopia. Today's University of the Sneak Attack on Pearl Harbor must serve as a reminder that those who went before us knew not only the value of freedom and the cost of freedom, they are willing to pay the price for freedom for you and me. As they did it, that which is dearer than any treasure, they gave their blood. In the face of their sacrifice for us, are we really prepared to give it all away to the elitist tyrants now in charge of our government? And this was written by J.D. Longstreet.
That's a good article. Brings lots of different emotions and feelings. It's kind of touches on a lot of them.
There's a lot to be said there.
A lot to be said, exactly. And a lot of stuff to think about. As you were reading it, I just kept thinking, kind of from one thing to the other. It just kept leaping from one different, and it's all important stuff to me. And I hope that it is important to the majority of the people. And that's kind of what I think it was about, is how we're losing scope of that importance.
We almost need a McCarthy witch hunt.
No. But I understand your point. It's I just kept wondering as you were reading that, I know politicians right now that would lay down before the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, so many of those politicians that would lay down believe in the Marxist or socialist ideas, and they call them freedom ideas and patriot ideas.
Yeah. Well, you heard that from I talked about our county legislation. You heard that from the supervisors. These people in the southern part of Santa Barbara do not care about the people. What they care about is that they, like so wonderfully said by Mr. Adams, is that they come down from their pillars and look at the peasants and say, we've got a better way to train you. And they're the very people they're supposed to be looking over. Right. Instead, they're not. They're looking over their own interest and their own views in their own apostolic way. They think that they're above everything. And that's what's killing us.
Yep.
They're not out here. Absolutely. And when you were reading that article, I thought, man, I started thinking about all my aunts and uncles and people that lived during that time. My grandmother started a business during that time. My uncle was a lawyer during that time. And I started thinking about those people. And I started thinking the determination that they had is not there anymore.
It was a nation. It was a country, a generation of doers.
Yeah,
can do. We will do. And then they celebrated when they did with others.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't. It was not. They didn't put their hand up and say, "Yeah, we won." They were in there. They were part of it.
Yeah, everyone was invited to the party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it wasn't about an agenda. It was about getting the job done, man.
That was the time period right after World War II where America put the heart to America because we were still united. And look what we created. We created freeways, highways.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, an industrial
infrastructure
that made America great. And look at us now. We've got bridges and roads that are decrepit.
Well, look at Detroit.
We don't have the money to fix things. We don't have the unity to bring everybody together because everybody's got to blame something, whether it's, oh my God, it's the cops are all bad. Oh my God, it's the politicians is all bad. Oh my God, it's my neighbors are bad. Or it's this group of people. What happened to the unity? Yes, there was always some bad peas in the pod, but as a rule, generally, altogether, we made things happen.
Well, look what's happened to the service industries, where normally that would be a stepping stone to bigger and better things.
Right.
Is now beginning to call, this is a life. This is your life. You're a servant. We need $12 to $15 to serve my family.
I cannot believe that either.
But that's what's happening. They're making us what? Servants.
That's exactly.
Instead of willful people to get up and say, I'm going to do something better. I listened to that. I listened to something the other day from some young lady back east. I was astonished.
You know what? And you're absolutely right. That brings back something that I've been saying for this whole time, too, is, okay, we have illegal aliens, and there's people that want to make it okay for there to be illegal aliens.
Right.
All they're doing is saying, yeah, we want slaves because Americans won't do it.
It's a great point.
What good is that to give another human being that deserves to be on an equal level, hey, we're going to let you be a slave?
Servitude.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And that's ridiculous. Those guys should have every dream that we have by becoming a part of this group. If you let them be separate from it, then that's all they'll ever be as slaves.
You're right. And you know what they do? Because I was in the grocery business. They'll tell them where to get your WIC, where to get this, where to get that, where to live off the government. Instead of saying, look, let's get a job. That's what they do, and that's what they want them. They want to hand them stuff so they can keep saying, you need me. You need me to really live.
The American dream is a different dream entirely than it used to be.
Exactly.
And that's
unbelievable.
It's too bad. It really is.
Even, I'm sorry.
No.
Even with the way they have it set up, people still want to come to America. People still want to escape their countries.
It's still the best. Just because it's not the best it can be, it is still better than most other places.
Yeah.
But
for now.
Exactly. But it can be so much better if this, just like we were just talking about in the post-World War II era. That was a better era.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. From 1944 right on through to the 1960s, there was some difficulty things. Some things happening.
There's always going to be difficulties. It's never going to be easy.
Entrepreneurship was at its highest.
Yes.
And now we make it so hard and we tax them so much and give them so much regulations that, hey, you might as well just give up and go work at McDonald's.
That's what I was saying.
Live a way of life.
That's what they want. And then make $12 an hour to doing it, so you got to stay there.
Right.
We don't want you anywhere else but in the serving industry.
Right.
And we'll give you enough money to survive, but that's it.
Don't be greedy.
Exactly.
$15 an hour, you can survive, but you can't really buy a house at $15 an hour.
No. Yeah.
You can buy a car, but it's not a really good car. You
can buy a really good house as a single parent making $20 an hour.
Oh, yeah. It's just incredible. Yeah. That's where they want you, though.
It's
sad but true.
It's
heart-wrenching.
Truth dart.
Yeah, it's true. It is. Where's the entrepreneurship? Somebody wanted to build. Did you hear what they were trying to do with the coast and everything? I keep talking about the city because it happened to us, or about our county. But they wanted to start more oil right here off of Orchid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
300 or 400 more jobs would have came of it. It's fracking. There's no problems with fracking. It's well established. It was given to it. The commission said, "Yeah, we want to do this." 2-1. Everybody wants this thing. Comes before the people who are supposed to say yes to it. 3 out of 5 said no. Everybody else says yes.
Everybody else wanted it.
We got to have some way of overruling that. There's got to be some way to overrule that. But that's what we're turning into, right?
We need to rewrite our state constitution and reset everything up.
Something's got to be done.
Man. That's what they want.
Yeah, that's what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And they're determined.
Well, believe it or not, that's what we want too.
Well, or just the ideals of the Constitution. Go back to the original one. Stop eschewing it so drastically like it is today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not
just everything
has to have
just
an underlying tone.
That's just it. We need people that. It's so hard nowadays because you have special interest parties putting in money, buying people off and getting different things through and helping because they have so much more money to give to advertising to get somebody elected that the guy that's down there in the street that works hard that really would represent can't get a fair shake to even get up there and be elected.
Like I said, 2-1.
Yeah,
2-1.
Right.
They were saying, yes, we want this.
And
yes,
it
we
still
want
didn't
this.
happen.
And they said no. The commission that puts the reports out, these oil companies have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get these things done. These things aren't cheap. Some of them cost a couple of $100,000 to get it done. And they say, yes, this is going to work. We've looked at every angle. Now, some of the people on our county probably never even looked at the report.
Right.
They had already said, no, I ain't voting for it because this is what I want.
Right. Or they're just going with the trend right now. Oh, no fracking.
They had their own elitist ideas of how it was supposed to work.
I got a great movie. Anybody who wants to see it, it says Frack Nation. You got to see it.
I think it's that the one with...
No, I can't remember the guy's name. It's a documentary that proves that everybody who thinks that fracking kills the water and does all this stuff is nothing but a lie.
Right.
Do you know how long we've been doing fracking? 70 years. Yep. It's not a new thing.
No, and
unbelievable.
Your water's not going to catch on fire. Guarantee it, 100%. It's not going to happen.
Destroy the land. You're going to ruin my property.
That's why your water will not catch on fire.
That's why these wonderful people up there in North Dakota,
Yep.
the Indian guys. They said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do another 1,000," because nobody can tell them no. They own the land; they're smart.
That's true.
They said, we're doing another 1,000 wells. It's all fracking. Oh, it's perfectly safe.
Yeah.
We've been doing fracking up here for 30 years.
And it seems to be working out fine.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
And all that just kind of goes on with the way we were thinking. The ideals of thing right now, how everybody becomes a victim, everybody becomes a wuss, kind of, and that's the way they want it. If everybody's a wuss, chances are they're not going to uprise against them because they're all wusses.
We'll get their guns first.
Hey, watch it.
That way they can't stand up, protect themselves.
That's how it starts.
I think we need to rewrite the Second Amendment.
That's how. No ideas. Bad idea.
Well, let's just take infringement out of it.
There you go.
That's the beginning of it, right?
Oh man. Well, they pretty much already have. Every time they mention it, they take infringement out of it.
God. All right, everybody. We hope that you have a great weekend. Don't forget, Christmas is coming right up.
Yep. And if you know anybody that was in the World War II or any other war, take a second and give them thanks because it really does count. And think about some of the stuff we talked about. So. Have fun, be safe, and On the Firing Line with Matt, Joe, and Jim. We'll be back next Saturday.